information, I am bringing you tonight location astrology, or what's been also trademarked as astrocartography, or world map astrology. So I appreciate all of you who have tuned in on my Facebook Live videos, as I have been evolving and refining my cameras, my lighting, and my microphones as well. So you've probably noticed various changes of quality over time. I hope this is a significant improvement, and you'll notice that I look around because I have various monitors that I'm working with here. So tonight we are here looking at a map of the world, and this is a map of the world that is based on the transposition of an astrology chart onto a map of the world. That's what all these lines are you see here. So I'm going to explain tonight what location astrology is for those of you who are not familiar with it. For those who've heard the term astrocartography, originally formulated by Jim Lewis over 25 years ago. Believe it or not, and I have verified this over the course of 25 to 30 years of my own astrology chart, that your chart can actually not only indicate aspects of your character and personality and relationship compatibility, life purpose, karma, and career, as these are all different readings you can read about on my website, as I have indicated up here on www.altazarastrology.com. But also, when we transpose your astrological natal chart onto a map of the world, as you're seeing here, it actually can show auspicious locations for various emphases in your life. So what we're looking at tonight is, and welcome Orion, what we're looking at here is the natal chart of John Doe. Now, this birth date I have here, June 4th, 1969, is randomly chosen. So if you're out there and this happens to be your birth date, this was not intentional. It was randomly chosen. This is a fictitious person, birth date, time, and location. So this astrology chart here is the birth chart of John Doe if he was born on June 4th of 1969. And if you've never seen an astrology natal chart, if all you're familiar with is your sun sign, you know, whether it be a Libra or a Taurus or a Pisces or whatever, that sun sign here for this person is a Gemini. There's the sun in Gemini. But actually the planets from Mercury through Pluto were all in a sign, different signs, the day that John Doe was born, or the day you were born. So this chart we're taking here, we are transposing onto a map of the world. And so all these lines that you see here on this world map, these vertical lines, these curved lines, etc., correlate with the positions in John Doe's natal chart. So what is the point here? Well, the point is that this only really works if we have relatively accurate time of your birth. I need to, clarify that. So along with your birth date, that is month, day, and year, and your location of birth, we need your birth time to be not more than 15 minutes to a half an hour accurate. Without an accurate birth time, we cannot really make an accurate map of the world as a transposition of the positions in your birth or natal chart. But if we do have an accurate birth time, again, I can testify to the fact, and I have lived in 11 states of the United States. I've traveled into Europe. I've traveled to Mexico and the Northwest. And I have verified through my experience, let alone hundreds of clients who have had me do their astro mapping, that the lines that go across the map in various locations do symbolize potential activities and or possibilities for your life in those locations. As much as an acupuncturist looks at your body in terms of the meridians in your body and is able to see, well, this point on your knee might affect your ear, or this point on your foot might affect your shoulder. These lines are kind of like meridians of your soul and your self-expression around the world. So in other words, there are various lines that can indicate potential for your career expression that are more enhanced than in other locations. There are lines that can indicate potential for your romantic possibilities, and there are lines that are indicative for a more prosperous experience of home, family, and or finances. There are lines that are indicative for a place that you might retreat or be inclined towards a deeper psychological or spiritual growth. So this is what astromapping is about. And I have traveled the United States and have experienced my lines in various locations. I've lived in Montana, I've lived here in Colorado, I've lived in San Francisco. I was born and raised in the New York metro area. And I have verified how, for example, under a Venus line, that I have had more romantic opportunities and that I have had more financial growth and just a more loving or gracious experience with the environment where I lived. So I'm going to give you some examples here of John Doe's chart here. So when we do this astro mapping evaluation, you see John Doe's chart here, and this chart does indicate that John Doe may have certain clashes of will or ego challenges based on the fact that he has Mars here opposite his Mercury or his Sun. So that does indicate as a Gemini that he may have certain real challenges that are experienced at that time and or in his life in regards to how patient he is in his communications. So we're going to move on to his map here, and we're going to look for a Mars or a Sun line. Now, there's various interpretations of these lines. Here's a Sun line that's pointing east. So that's what we call an ascending Sun line. Now, over here we see the Sun in what we call a descending or facing west. So an ascending line is a line in which a person has to take the initiative for the symbolism of that planet. So most people know their sun sign at least. So for this John Doe, who's a Gemini, we see that the sun line is fairly near Hawaii. So it indicates that he might have a favorable experience in terms of taking an initiative for his identity in Hawaii. However, because he has a karma of conflict associated with this Mars position and his sun sign, that Hawaii may not be a good place for him, because when we look on his map, we see that the Mars line is near Hawaii also. So that's a place where he could encounter some serious clashes of will with other people. So when we look at this, we do an evaluation for a person to see, well, around the world, what are favorable places for this person? And especially in terms of their identity expression, their relationship possibilities. So I'm going to move over to a Venus line here. We're going to bring this a little closer here. And many people just have an evaluation done for the United States or North America, because they're not really planning to move to Europe or Russia or India or South America or Africa. So if he were to ask me, well, where in the United States is a place that would highlight an elevated potential financial opportunity for his career, and a Venus line, as we see it right here, this vertical line here, is that's what we call Venus line on the midheaven, or the Venus line associated with career, as it's at the top of the chart here. You see these positions on the bottom of the chart are more for related to where one lives, home or family or fulfillment in that regard. So in that regard, we see that we look at the Venus position, and we note that, and by the way, Orion, I will mention that just because Colorado's a pretty neat place and great for skiing and all sorts of things, everyone's chart's unique, and for some people, the lines that go through Colorado based on their unique astrology chart are terrible. And as far as opportunities for their career or financial prosperity or home and family and comfortability in relationship to home and family. So we have to look at your individual chart to see what opportunities exist in this area. In this case, for this gentleman, John Doe, as we magnify the United States, that Venus line goes right through and near New Orleans. And we usually take a 50 to 100 mile distance on either side of the line. And so in this case, New Orleans would present a potential positive financial or career growth opportunity for John Doe. And then also, we can go up this vertical corridor and note that St. Louis, Missouri would be an opportunity location for career or financial development. Now, some planets represent a positive dynamic, and other planets represent a tension or challenge dynamic. So we're going to, we already looked at his Mars position, but I'm going to look at his Saturn position here. So you see this Saturn line, and the Saturn line goes near Chicago. So Saturn represents hard work and responsibility. So a Saturn on the midheaven line can be good for someone who is inclined to pursue a career that involves managerial dynamics, administration, and or public responsibility, like a politician or someone who has a very public business. So, Lynn, welcome. Good to see you here. We're discussing astro mapping, and I have the chart of John Doe here. And so we're going to get rid of John Doe's chart, and we're going to take up another chart here. But before I do, I will mention here that this is the image of where the planets are right today in relationship to John Doe's chart. Now, one thing I would like to note is that one reason I evaluate an astro map not only based on the planets and the positions as they're on that map, that's a lifetime map. However, not always are certain locations significant or auspicious for someone at a certain period of time. And that's where we need to look at the transits. This is the transits, this is where the planets are today in regards to John Doe's chart. And note that in his chart, this planet Neptune is in an adverse angle to his sun position, especially his sun sign. And so I wouldn't suggest that he moved to a position or place or location that is associated with him attempting to manifest significant ego or personality recognition, because under a Neptune influence, a person usually is denied anything that's associated with material egoic ambition and or a public relations dynamic that involves charisma of his personality. However, if he was considering moving to a location that was associated with charity, social humanitarian or compassionate service to society, then that would be a favorable location for John Doe under a Neptune influence. So the evaluation we make with a map is associated with not only the lines that are transposed from the natal chart, but also the current planetary movements. And I'm gonna grab the chart of Albert Einstein here and see what that looks like. There we go. So this is a chart of Albert Einstein in the inner ring, and the outer ring are where the planets are currently. And we're going to bring up the actual natal chart for Albert Einstein. And now, if you've never seen an astro map or astrocartography map, we're going to bring up Albert Einstein's astrocartography, or in this case, with this software, this is IO cartography. Now, I will tell you this, that I have close to $1,000 worth of software in order to create this map and the mapping I use on my PC computer, Windows 10. So these are very sophisticated software, and again, if you've arrived late, we're looking at how your astrology natal chart, especially based on a reasonably accurate birth time, because the layout of this map and these lines are a function of the layout of your chart that's determined by your birth time. So if your birth time is pretty accurate or within 15 minutes of a good estimate, then your astro map is going to be reasonably accurate. Otherwise, not so much. So we're looking at the chart of Albert Einstein, and also mentioning that the planetary positions of a person's natal chart, in this case, Albert Einstein's sun sign, we see here is at 23 degrees Pisces. So when we come to look at this map to see what kind of sun sign possibilities exist for Albert Einstein, here's the sun sign on the midheaven. That's in Europe, and he's from Europe. And then over here we see this sun sign here on the east coast of the United States. And then we also see a Jupiter line, a favorable line going through the United States here. But what's most interesting is the fact that Albert Einstein was, his theories and his intelligence were greatly involved in the development of the atomic bomb. And you'll note that Los Alamos, New Mexico is over here in the United States, and there's Mars going right through there, and Mars is very connected to things associated with war explosives and an aggressive approach to manifesting projects in the world. So we can see that that's a significant effect for Albert Einstein. But let's say we're not looking at Albert Einstein in terms of knowing who he is, but determining places that might be interesting or favorable for him. Doesn't look like he has the most favorable places in the United States other than, or even in the Western Hemisphere, short of Hawaii. So we see here he has a sun sign line going right near Honolulu, and a sun sign conjunct the nadir, and so that's the base of his chart. So that implies a place that he could retreat to and experience great solace in terms of comfortability regarding a home environment, and a place that he could really enjoy relaxing and experiencing an animated connection with home or family. Now, I've already shared that Venus lines are a place that people look for the possibility of romantic opportunity and financial opportunity. And so for Albert Einstein, the northeast section of Brazil, as you can see here, there's a Venus ascending line. So when the arrow is pointing that way, that's a Venus ascending line. That's a place where a person has to take the initiative for evolving the quality associated with that planet. And on the other hand, if the arrow is pointing the other way, as we see here, the Venus is pointing west, this is a place like through Australia or this area here in the Indonesian and Southeast Asian islands is a place that he can receive from society easily social connections or even romantic possibilities. So ascending lines that are facing east are where you take initiative associated with the quality or attribute of that planet, and lines that are facing west, such as this Uranus line here, are places where you receive or are easily connecting with society because society kind of takes an initiative to draw you out into more social dynamics. And so a Uranus line, in this case for Albert Einstein, is a place where he could easily make connections with friends and organizations that have a scientific and or intellectual or social humanitarian dynamic. So let's see who else we have here. And okay, so what I would suggest for those who are interested in discerning their astro map is that you contact me. My phone number is here, or you can reach me through my website, www.altazarastrology.com. This is not a workshop or a webinar. This is just a brief exposition of what astromapping or astrocartography is. I'm working on getting the software to do a workshop through the internet and or a webinar in which we could have interactive dynamics with a number of people right here on the website. But tonight this is just to give you a sample of why people look at their astromap. And that reason is clearly, one, if they're frustrated with living in the Denver or Boulder metro area, if their career is not moving anywhere, if their relationships or romantic possibilities seem to be stalled, if financial growth seems to be limited, if even soul growth or personality psychological dynamics are difficult or frustrated. People have me do a map, and we look at, well, what exists here for you in the Boulder, Denver metro area. And often people will have me do this map so that they have me evaluate the United States and determine more auspicious locations to move that maybe highlight more romantic or relationship opportunities or financial or career growth. Also, how the map works is that it's not meant to be a dogmatic and rigid positioning of well, Albert Einstein might do well living in Los Angeles or in Tennessee. But what I do is highlight these locations and explain what energies are potentially operative there based on these planetary positions. And then it's up to the individual to visit the place or research it on the internet, see how they feel about it. So this is a packaged process of being activated by the universe to see what possibilities are out there for you. And then as well, checking it out intuitively in your own consciousness. And then from there, checking it out physically and culturally and through the people you might meet or connect there. I will tell you this, that I've used this possibility over time, in which I moved to San Francisco at one point. I went to the University of California based on the lines that existed there for career development. But the San Francisco Bay Area was not really comfortable for me ultimately. And I always noticed how when I traveled through the Rocky Mountains, I just always felt, I loved it. I was uplifted. I loved traveling through Montana and Utah. And I discovered I had these wonderful Venus lines and sun lines going through the Rocky Mountains. And so I've always checked it out and have verified the wonderful living situations and opportunities I've had for relationships and financial and career development through the Rocky Mountain corridor between Colorado and Nevada. So this has worked for other people. You can try it yourself, you can verify it, and have me do a perspective on the United States. I had another client recently who did one for the entire world. Not necessarily because he wanted to leave Colorado, but he wanted to know different places that highlighted travel, vacations, cultural experiences, places that would highlight making new friends and or upliftment spiritually. And there are ley lines and focal points, what some people call vortices, that are in various locations. I've been to them in Sedona, that are highlighted on a person's world map. So I look forward to hearing from you. If you'd like to have a free brief sample reading, you're welcome to call me at my 303-727-0023 or email me altazarastrology@gmail.com. Blessings to you, and I'll look forward to seeing you at my next Facebook Live or by direct contact.